we're ready to kick off. Anne, take it away.
All right, everyone. Our speaker today was Dr. Brooke Edmonds, who's from the Oregon State Extension Service. She left an email message for us at 11 p.m. last night saying that she was late. So I decided let's go ahead and talk about the Oregon Extension Service Master Gardener Program. I'll show you a video and then we can have a discussion with a free-range Q&A. But first, before we start, would Master Gardeners in the room please stand up? We've got Helen in the back. Tom Ellis, I know, was a Master Gardener. Virginia's a Master Gardener. Retired, okay. Is that like a lapsed Catholic? Okay. All right, so there are people in this room that can answer your garden questions. So we'll go ahead and play with that this afternoon. We'll go ahead and play with that after the video so that you can get kind of oriented to some of the things the Master Gardener program's doing. In particular, what Brooke was going to talk to you about today is a program about citizen scientists helping OSU with information in order to build a climate-resilient garden program. So essentially, they have a survey out online. The actual search term that you would use is garden future. You can take the survey and there's only 3 questions to it. What have you noticed in terms of climate change? What are you doing differently? And what would you like to learn? So from all that input from all the citizen scientists who respond to that, OSU is building a curriculum to help folks adapt resiliently to the changes that we're seeing in our environment. So we'll go ahead, and the other thing that OSU has been doing that I think is really remarkable is they're building communities mindfully around the environment, and they're also engaged in work about social justice. One of the things we find is that wealthy areas have a lot of trees versus areas where there's more poverty or areas where there's people of color. You find that without the trees, the temperature is 10 to 15 degrees hotter. And that heat alone increases health impacts. There's adverse health impacts from having to cope with that kind of heat. So we'll go ahead and watch the video, and then I'll throw it open to a free-ranging discussion.
Today. Thank you for coming to this Oregon Growing Gardeners Level Up Series session. This series is produced by the Oregon State University Extension Master Gardener Program and has been organized and led by a group of Master Gardener coordinators, OSU faculty, and staff from across the state. The OSU Extension Master Gardener Program educates Oregonians about the art and science of growing and caring for plants. We are in 27 counties across the state and train thousands of Oregon Master Gardener volunteers. OSU Extension Master Gardeners are community educators, neighbors, and on-the-ground researchers who serve their communities with solid training in science-based sustainable gardening and a love of lifelong learning. If you're a Master Gardener volunteer, thank you for dedicating your time and knowledge. If you're not a Master Gardener but are interested in becoming one, you can learn more about the program and about other workshops in the series on our website. You can learn more. Today's workshop is being recorded and will be accessible to view along with all the presentations in this series also in our website. For questions that you have, please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. You can also vote up questions already in the Q&A, bringing up the question to the top of the list. And the chat has been disabled today for today's presentation. We will have time for questions at the end of the presentation for Jamie. You will also see a pop-up window at the end of the presentation for an evaluation of our webinar. Please fill this out and let us know how we did today. This helps us continually make improvements to our series. So our talk for today is Grow Shade, Why Cities Need More Trees, Please. I'm going to take down this screen here so that Jamie can start bringing up his presentation as I read his bio and information about him. So Jamie King is an urban forester who brings specialized experience in community engagement, workforce development, urban planning, tree preservation, and tree canopy resilience to his role as director of coaching and consulting for the Urban Forestry Field Delivery Team. He also serves on the International Society of Arboriculture, Credentialing Council, and with the Urban and Community Forestry Society, where he works to elevate the people and practice of urban forestry and arboriculture. So with that, I'm very excited that you are here, Jamie, and welcome.
Thank you for having me, Heather. It's a great pleasure to be here. I've got a lot of great friends in Oregon. Your state urban forester, Scott Altenhoff's a good friend of mine, and he's doing great work for all of you. I hope you know that. And at OSU, Dr. Paul Reese, he's a leader in our industry, and he's been supportive of me for my whole career. I'd be remiss if I didn't point that out. Today, I'm super excited to speak to all of you because for my whole career, I have worked with master gardeners and master naturalists because in many ways, y'all are some of the closest allies we have in urban forestry, plant people, community advocates, people who like to lead, people who like to learn, people that like to teach. In many ways, you're more powerful than planting a tree because in many cases, making the case for trees is the situation we're still in. And that's why I'm so excited to be able to engage with you today. I work for American Forests, and we work to support people across the nation on their pathway to what's called tree equity. Tree equity is a loaded term, but in practice, it is simply providing trees and the benefits that trees provide to everyone. And specifically, that means sometimes making up for divestment in the past. We're going to talk about that specifically today. At the root of all of our work is the communities that we serve alongside, our partners like you. And we work hard every day to fuel the movement needed to reach the goals that we've set to feed the tree equity movement nationally and help move the needle towards justice. We are in a climate crisis. Many of you probably already know that, maybe feel the effects. And people are actively dying due to extreme heat, especially people in urban communities where the unhoused, the elderly, the disabled, and people on fixed incomes struggle to adapt to heat waves and other extreme weather. But communities with more trees, which are historically white and affluent neighborhoods, are less vulnerable to these stresses. Systemic racism, like redlining in the 1930s, has resulted in inequities across the United States. Back in those days, federal agencies, through systemic racism, actually created color-coded maps to assess the risk of mortgage lending in neighborhoods. And these maps labeled neighborhoods that were predominantly Black or immigrant communities as red, flagging them for banks to then not approve loans or insurance for people living there, despite the residents' real financial status or their actual ability to repay loans or meet insurance requirements. That happened a long time ago, and it was repealed since, but it's resulted in a long-lasting impact within communities across the country. Specifically, in this case, what we're talking about today is fewer trees in those communities. which means higher summertime temperatures and higher incidence of cardiovascular disease. And that means that the people in those communities, which still remain in many cases communities of color and people who are immigrants and other folks who are marginalized in many ways, they are more exposed to this risk, to these conditions. These effects are tangible. The people's stories are real, and there are pathways to improving these living conditions, but it takes action now, which is why we kind of all have to come together to advocate for tree equity and then apply it nationally, universally, because we can improve people's lives noticeably. We can make up for the past through urban greening. With trees specifically, but also gardens and all of the land necessary to cultivate green solutions to problems. So that's the base of what we're going to talk about. And the discussion is largely about how urban greening through urban forestry is change. And that change needs leaders, and leaders need partners. Because whether planting trees and tree maintenance are going well in your community, or if your urban tree canopy is shrinking, the change is inevitable. Development, the climate crisis, urbanization, threats come from all sides. And beyond the land, your community is in flux too. Demographics change, generations change. And many times those are predictable, but they can be difficult for us to respond to on a timeline that humans can influence. So just as we plan and adaptively manage land and cultivate green spaces and plants and trees, we can and should welcome change among our constituents, our neighbors, our partners. So we may cultivate our communities and seek to help them understand the power of trees. That's something that we can all do, isn't it? I kind of mentioned that at the beginning of the call. We as plant people kind of carry a duty to educate folks who don't understand the biology like we do. But what beyond that, what is your role, your specific role? Can you use your position in your community, in your neighborhood, in your church home, in your family, to transform this paradigm that we live in now? Today we'll meditate on that together, and I hope to learn with you how we may better serve the public, how we can better serve future generations, and how we can transform communities into something greater than the parts, the land and the people. How about both? So we're going to start with a quick discussion about a concept called the law of the few. We're going to spend some time answering some polls that will come up on your screen, and I hope to hear from all of you to identify what your role is in the tree equity movement. We're going to work together to think about what some of our communities may need the most. What are the priorities? And we'll wrap up, and I really hope we have time for questions and answers. So you can scan this QR code, or I think it may be a clickable link too, to find the book by Malcolm Gladwell called The Tipping Point. And in that book, he talks about how little things can make a big difference. He makes the case that small actions lead to desired outcomes, and that we can advance or shape change through strategic action. I call that transformation. While the author presents several agents of change, I believe the key message in this book is the concept of the law of the few, where he concludes leadership depends on the right people. So let's talk about how that applies to you and what you do every day. Connectors. These are people that hold relationships. Mavens, that's a funny term. It kind of just means experts. They hold information, knowledge. And in the book, he uses the term salespeople, but I think persuader is more appropriate for you and in my work. And persuaders advance people and ideas. So, unpacking that a little further, connectors hold relationships that are important because trees intersect with other infrastructure and other community priorities, and good relations assist us in collaborating and helping advance missions across communities on a larger scale. Mavens keep us up to date with trends and evolving science. I think we all know that science is rapidly advancing, and if we don't adapt, we become irrelevant, and our knowledge does too. And we have to hold knowledge to build trust and credibility. Lastly here, persuaders fill a role in a sea of competing priorities and personalities. It's the persuaders that help us deliver our messages, and that's important through advocacy, because change, transformation, advocacy is a major component of that. And progress follows inspiration. So if we're not inspired, we may not be able to do that work. This is where I'll flag that the call to put up our polls. I hope I can see them too. Yeah, I can. Thank you. So some questions here, and you can click these and then we'll review the results together. The question being, does your team, be it your family or your gardening group or folks you interact regularly with, community-based organizations, the people you work with, does your team have all three of these people, these different individuals, these skills, these specialties? Oh, it says I can't vote. That's good to know. Do your partners carry any of these loads? So if it's not you doing these things, does someone that you trust, that you've partnered with to do work, does somebody else carry that load? The third question there is, could you make a new friend to fill that need? Could you recruit somebody through partnership or through education to be a connector or a maven or a persuader? And then lastly, do you think that your team, the people you work with, the people you're aligned with, if you thought about it, could you grow into these roles? Could you learn how to hold relationships better or persuade politics better? Let's see. So since I can't vote, I wonder.
Let me know if you need the poll ended, and then it can show the results.
Yeah, it's been a minute. Does it tell you how many people voted?
You're about halfway, and you're about 2 minutes, so we'll go ahead and end this one for you.
Great, thank you. And okay, there's the results. Thanks everybody for participating. There will be other polls later, so it won't be as big of a surprise. So 75% almost think that they already work with teams that are complete. In many cases, their partners are carrying the loads. They do think, generally the group thinks that they could pull more people in to fill those needs. And then, yeah, I love this. This is so aspirational and inspiring. 94% of you who are able to vote with us think that you can grow into these roles. That's great. Thank you all. So the answer is yes, 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 and yes. So you know, I do use this data and compare it group to group. You're like today for me, you're a focus group. So I know kind of representatively how your teams, how you all function. And that's valuable for us in American Forests. So thank you for participating. So moving on, I want to stay on time. Now we know your first impressions, but let's talk about each of these change makers in more depth. Here you see some details about the connector. Think about it. Do you remember people's names or faces, or both? I'm the kind of person that'll recognize your face from 5 years ago across Disney World, but I won't remember your name. Do you have a lot of friends? Do you go to a lot of parties? Do you enjoy meeting new people? If so, then you're a connector and you're a people specialist. You know and keep in touch with many people, and that role connects us all to the world and each other. It's essential. How about the mavens in the group? Do you collect information? Do you read everything that you see? Do you enjoy researching new things? Do you know all of the different varieties of plants in your yard, but also your neighbors? Do you like sharing that information with other people? If you do, then you're an information specialist. And you take delight in discovering new things and also sharing those things. And that role links us to trends, links us to technology and expertise. It's also essential. And now how about persuaders? My favorite line here is, are you good at seduction? Do you like to dance? Do people recognize you by your laugh? If so, then you're probably a relationship specialist, and you may be naturally or purposefully charismatic, and that helps you build rapport and trust with others. And again, critical here, persuaders help us motivate and inspire people and teams. So here's another poll where you can self-report, and this is anonymous. If you don't mind putting that poll up, then we can see who's in the room. We'll give, it's 21 after the hour, so maybe 2 minutes here. We'll give everybody a chance to vote, and then we'll close it out and see what the results are. Let's see, does anybody hosting the call for me today want to share who they are?
Sure. So I probably would consider myself a maven in that I enjoy sharing information. Yeah, I can definitely tell you all the plants in my yard and the plants in my neighbors' yards. I don't know if I fit in with the other things about like seeking out a deal, and I think there's some other things on there that I was like, I don't know about that part, but yeah, this is kind of fun to try and figure out your strengths.
Thank you, Heather. I'll share too after we see everybody's vote. Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that with everybody. Okay, so we've got a lot of experts in the room. 62% consider yourself a maven or an expert. We've got more folks voting now too. Thank you for that. We've got heavy presence in connectors, and less people are confident about their ability to persuade. That's very, very helpful. Thank you so much. So I would insert the percentages into the slide here, but the software doesn't let me. So what I do here is flag the highest percentage. And also after the call, I'll ask our host to share the poll results with me so I can collate those with others. So before we move on to this one, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. When I was at a leadership training in 2018, we completed a personality test, and in that I confirmed what I was already kind of suspicious about, that I'm a director, but also a persuader with strengths in both areas. And I've found in myself and in others through watching them, sometimes we're, we don't mind telling people what to do, and actually sometimes have a knack at changing people's minds. But at the same time, my professional identity is very much aligned with my skills and knowledge. Indeed, I use kind of those skills and knowledge and presence sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes as an expert to leverage persuasion and authority when directing. And I think this is true for most people. We can and do hold strengths in many areas. So thank you for choosing one, but we'll think a little more about growing into the others later in the call today. So now we know who we are, or who we think we are, right? Let's think about who our communities need us to be. And to do that, let's think about some different priorities that our communities, our teams, our organizations, and our colleagues hold. And for this next poll, there's 4 options. There's 4 questions with 4 options. And for this activity, tree equity as a priority means actively prioritizing the mitigation of unjust acts from the past, usually through planting, maintaining, and preserving trees in neighborhoods that need them the most. The second option is going to be capacity building, which in practice here is efforts to build teams, to buy tools, to train people, to build systems to meet community needs. The second to last, impact, is measuring the results of work and reporting numbers. So trees planted, trees maintained, people educated, gardens built, plots dug, things like that. And then best practice is meeting industry standards every time, driving the practice through excellence. So if you don't mind putting the next poll up, we'll see. Here we are. So for your community, if you had to rank the most important priority between tree equity, capacity building, impact, and best practice, what would it be? And we'll do that for the folks you work most closely with, your team. Then maybe administrative, I'm thinking your city, the place you live. Could be an HOA, could be a town, could be a city. Like what are they in terms of the green outdoors? What are they prioritizing? And then nationally, do you see any movement? And then if you scroll down after you answer what the most important priority is, if you scroll down, you can see the same questions, and we'll ask you to flag and name, rank the lowest priority by those same criteria. And as you're answering to give us some time to think and to participate, I'll go back over. So tree equity is, actively undoing injustice in the past, planting more trees, maintaining them, investing in communities that have been left out. Capacity building, that's building teams, buying tools, training people. Impact is usually numbers based. How many people engaged at the planting event? How many people trained at the Master Gardener's training? And best practice is striving every time to get it right. I hope everybody had time to answer those questions.
It's slowed down, so I'll go ahead and share and that poll for you.
Okay, thank you. Oh boy. So the most important community priority is best practice. The most important team priority is capacity building, training others. Most important administrative priority, that's impact. So a widespread. And same for national perspective, it's impact. And reviewing our lowest priorities, community, capacity building seems to be the lowest. Best practice among your team. Well, hold on, I may be reading this wrong. The highest vote would be the lowest priority in this poll. So that's equally split between capacity building and impact. Administration is not clearly not invested in tree equity. And then nationally, even split between tree equity and capacity building. Thank you so much. That's very enlightening. So now that we have those results, here are some ways that each change maker can contribute towards the initiative that I've presented to you today. You as plant people, if you're inclined, can have a role in tree equity. And here are some different ways that you could get involved. People who are prioritizing tree equity might start by cultivating partnerships with connectors, as connectors. They might report the data using tools like the tree equity score that I'll link to at the end. It may already be in the chat. They may prioritize speaking for marginalized communities as a persuader. Folks building capacity might bridge the gap between problems by harnessing connection with others. They may drive decisions with information, like a maven. They may negotiate with other competing priorities through persuasion. All of these are essential services. When we strive for maximum impact, we should work hard to hear from every constituent and partner with them through connection. We may comprehensively report the results and associated perspectives collected by an expert like a maven. And we can tell our stories and others effectively to persuade others, to persuade leaders. If we want to align our work and our teams with best practice, we can connect with other professionals. We can mentor our teams and develop better public knowledge and skills. And we may attempt to convince others to follow best management through persuasion. So looking back on what we've talked about today, I hope you see that the discussion applies to tree equity specifically, but other movement and transformation more broadly. And looking back at the diverse priorities in our worlds, do you feel like there's barriers in between you and success? I've found that it seems like they're all connected. and they all require connection and information and communication. We must have capacity to do our work well, and we must focus on our efforts to actually drive results. Maybe it's all connected and we can embrace our role as community leaders, and maybe that service requires us to grow and learn while inviting others to the table. Maybe we can spread the load. So concluding here, it looks like we will have plenty of time for questions. Even if these three types of people Gladwell presents are conjecture and they don't align with your own experiences, I still believe the point is valid and one that is uniquely applicable and with us that touch plants, because so often the public doesn't understand the value of what we do. Urban greening is multidisciplinary and it's particularly intersectional. Trees and gardens are where our specialties and our allies' talents and our community's well-being intersect. And we as leaders must bring all of these threads together to fill any gaps through learning or through collaboration. That's what I call service leadership. One of my biggest takeaways from my career this far, I kind of alluded to earlier, is that to best serve, we must be flexible. A leader can fill the gap at the table or on the team themselves or through outreach and recruitment to bring other people's special talents and perspective and skills to the table. So is the team connected internally and externally? Well, maybe if it's not, maybe we need to lead that effort or take direction from another strong leader. Maybe two groups can become one. Is the group well informed? Can you meet that need, or is there an expert on your team that hasn't stepped up yet that just needs to be validated and invited? Even if the team is strong and well informed, they may still need someone to advance the mission. And persuaders are folks who can build buy-in from others. Are you a storyteller, or is someone in your community the storyteller that your team needs? Service leadership may be your role, or it may be something we must recognize in others. Either way, if we are going to provide the benefits of trees and green spaces and plants to everybody and achieve equity, we must transform our communities into something more than the sum of the parts. I think that's a worthy goal, even though it's a lot of work. Wrapping up here, these are the links that are in the chat. On the left, you can scan that QR code, or I think you can click it, and that takes you to our community action guide, which is a step-by-step process for reaching and empowering people. That's connection, isn't it? In the middle here, that's the tree equity score that actually illustrates where trees are needed the most. That's information. And then on the far right there, that's the Tree Equity Handbook. It's a work in progress, but there's 3 books up now, which is a great resource that you can share with other community leaders or people that you work with so they can jump in and be involved. It's a tool that helps us persuade people to join the movement alongside us. And then if today's webinar was interesting to you, we're hosting what's called a tree equity.
Okay. All right, guys. So that was unexpected. For those of you who came to listen to someone talk about climate action, what's your reflection on what you just saw? Neil has the microphone. Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Good morning, Cassia here. To follow up on this presentation, I would hope that all of you know that the city of Salem has a very robust tree planting program. And it partners with Friends of Trees. You probably have seen them in parks and along the streets and out at Minto and all sorts of other places. And part of its goal, well, just to back up a little bit, I was on the committee that wrote the tree codes 3 times, I think. But in any event, the city is trying very hard to plant trees in areas where there aren't any or are where there's insufficient tree canopy, and it has tree canopy goals. And I think the current goal is something like 26% of the area within a particular region needs to have a full mature tree canopy. So that's a really big goal, and it does require, several people in the neighborhood to go around every now and then and knock on doors and say, would you like us to provide you with a tree? And the city has an entire booklet full of suitable trees that you can plant along your street. And all this has been in the works for many, many, many years. So that's just to let everybody know. I am a maven. My girlfriends call me a nerd. They like me, even so. So anyway, that's just to tell you that the city, you have the city resources, they're here. We do have an urban forester, and we have a parks board that is very concerned about trees always.
Okay, and I don't remember your name. Lucia? Cassia, okay. I just want to say that the urban forester for Salem is a young guy. He's in his 30s. He's got a lot of energy and a lot of enthusiasm. And in terms of helping folks in the neighborhood, one of the things that has to happen with those really young trees is they need a lot of water the first 2 years. And frequently I've found with my neighbors that they just don't know that. They think you just jam it into the ground and it'll be fine. So I spend a lot of my time helping folks water the new trees that the urban forester put in. Okay, does someone else have a reflection on this? Go ahead.
Yeah, this is Ken. On the negative side, I recall about 15 years ago, Salem passed an ordinance that you needed a permit to cut a tree, went into effect in 9 months. And during that 9 months, I saw greater amount of trees cut than I have ever since.
Okay, and my comment to that is Malcolm Gladwell talks about tipping points. Well, sometimes the tipping points are bad. If we don't take action like we've just been trained to do as a community, and if someone else is taking that action, sometimes it can be a tipping point that's adverse. So just be mindful. It's like Benjamin Franklin once said, we must all hang together or we shall all hang separately. We have a hand up here in the back.
Is it me? Is it my turn? Okay, sorry. Hi, I'm Ann, and a few years ago we were talking with Phil. What's Phil's last name? Phil Carver, who's a well-known advocate, environmental advocate here in town, about what happened after the big Columbus Day storm, when people in Salem just dashed out and put anything they could in the ground to replace all the trees that were destroyed in that storm. And they didn't think about what was going to happen to a redwood in 20 or 30 or 40 years. And now they're dealing with trees that are just way too big. And community welfare is an issue because people's houses are being slowly undermined by these gigantic trees, which are gorgeous, but
well, the urban forest, when Cassia talked about the urban forestry, they actually did an inventory of all those trees, and they've been gradually taken care of species that are inappropriate. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Bonnie. Kind of a related question, actually, is my neighbor, after that ice storm a few years ago, he cut all 6 trees in his area because or maybe it was more than that. Anyway, because he was so afraid of the ice storm. And now I feel like there's also fear of fire that are kind of working against this urban, forestry movement. And I'm just curious what can be done to make sure they don't create problems, but also, allay people's fears.
Okay, that's a really good answer, and OSU has a lot of pamphlets on the OSU catalog about how to design landscapes that are fireproof. So there's a lot of knowledge out there, and some of the mavens in the room, I'm sure, will have you flooded with pamphlets within three calendar days. But essentially, cutting trees is, first of all, trees can resist fires, right? In certain ways, in certain places. So that, not eucalyptus. Okay, Vicky's saying don't put eucalyptus in your yard. So just generally speaking, there's knowledge out there to answer the concerns. And trees, though, improve the quality of life, and they improve our health. Okay, who's next?
Well, I guess I'll jump in then, because I don't see any other hands. And I think, Cassia, you're probably the one who's going to answer my question. Could you speak a little bit to what the process is for an individual that just sees a section of a street that has no trees, or a property that has no trees? Who pays for it, and how do you get the ball rolling to get trees planted?
Okay, I'll give it my best shot. If you have like a vacant lot, if it's your vacant lot, then you can apply to the city for planting trees. Now, you can plant almost anything. However, you should be aware that the tree does have a city tree guide. So if you are planting trees, you need to plant tree species that will not interfere necessarily with driveways, sidewalks, sewer systems, those kinds of things. And which will, a slight aside here, I have gone around and around and around with this tree guide because I want tree canopy that spreads. And what we're planting now is an awful lot of columnar trees, which are fine, but they don't spread, so they don't give you the canopy. So anyway, that's step one. You go to the city and you say, give me a tree guide. Let me talk to the urban forester. The Parks Department has experts in it which can help with, selecting trees. If you're talking about trees along the berm, which we call street trees, the ones that are out in front of your property, you don't actually own those. So you don't own the berm. You guys probably didn't know that, but you don't own the berm. The city owns the berm. But between the sidewalk and the curb. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and those planting trees in the berms is very tricky because you need a certain width. So not all trees are going to be able to fit in, like the area I live in has very narrow berms. I live in an area that's heavily canopied, thank goodness for small favors, but the berms are really small. So we have old trees in there, which are big, huge oaks and all sorts of other things that are essentially not properly planted now because they're going to affect sewer systems and sidewalks and stuff like that. Okay, so sorry, I'm digressing here off. This is what mavens do. They go off on tangents. Anyway, so once you get to the city and they tell you what they think you can do with either the berm or your property along the line, then you contact one of the tree planting organizations if you don't want to plant it yourself. So Friends of Trees is a really good resource for trees. They have planted hundreds of trees in almost every park in the city, and they round up groups of people. I get little emails every now and then that says, on Sunday we're planting at McKay Park, you want to come out and plant trees. Usually it's in the rain and the mud and all that, but that's kind of fun in itself. So, all right, and so once you get your tree planted, then, as somebody mentioned, the key is keeping it watered. If it's your own private property, you're responsible for that. If it's on the city property and the city has planted the tree, which it might or might not do, but if it has planted the tree, it is supposed to come around with a watering truck every now and then and water the trees. They're supposed to do that. However, you as the property owner where that tree is located, even if it's on the berm, you are still responsible for maintaining that tree for at least the first 2 years. And as she pointed out, I go around my neighborhood and I fill up the little green bags that are along the side of things, and I keep whatever trees I can find filled up with water. In fact, we carried 5-gallon buckets of water into Englewood Park one year to make sure that the fir trees that we had planted survived. And they did. They're all there. What else did you want to know? Oh, who bears the cost? Well, if it's on your own property, you do. You buy the tree, you plant the tree, you take care of the tree. If it's on the city berm, the city has a program where it will finance the cost of the tree for the most part. Mm-hmm. So you don't have to pay for the tree, but you do have to pay for the water, that's used. So it's intended to be a pretty low-cost program overall and to get as many trees out as possible. Mm-hmm. Did that help?
Okay. One of the things
I will discuss Ken's political question with Ken later.
Yeah, that's right. Well, just generally speaking, one of the things that we've been trying to do, some of us who are speakers, is give you models for action. And in this particular case, it was an illustration of a community action approach under the OSU's Citizen Scientist program. OSU has a whole bunch of these programs. The trees was one, the growing and belonging to bring vegetable training to low-income folks. There's just a whole bunch of these little projects that you can get involved with. So I do recommend that you look at the OSU Extension Service website, and I also recommend that you talk to those of us who are involved. It's time for a break now. You guys have been a really good audience, and I appreciate you all.